Greetings, programs. Welcome to the Backburner Podcast. I'm Zach W. Lorton, host and creator of Backburner Games, which you can find on Patreon at patreon.com/backburnergames. We create role-playing games and role-playing game content that will allow you to bring more people to the table more easily. On today's episode, we are talking about the top 10 licensed games that don't suck.
But a while back in the deadness, back where you wanna now. Ooh, wow, love as you wanna, love as you wanna now.
Why specifically that? Well, I can guarantee you're not going to see the Adventure Time Card Wars game on this list. I guarantee you that. There are all sorts of games out there that have IPs thrown on them, and we've been seeing a lot recently. Jaws, Back to the Future, Top Gun. Very well-known and recognizable intellectual properties from the 80s, from the 70s, from literature, from movies, from television. They're all over the place. Which ones are good? Which ones are not? I don't know. I personally wanted to check out the Breaking Bad board game, but I'm afraid it's not good. Just because typically board games based on television shows aren't all that great. So I decided let's do a top 10 list. And by let's, I mean me, because I'm big enough for two people. I decided let's do a top 10 list of licensed games that don't suck. Now, why did I say licensed games as opposed to intellectual property games? I don't know. I just decided, hey, licensed games, what works? So for that reason, I'm going to start with two honorable mentions, and they're for semantic reasons. The first is, spoilers, I've not played any Star Wars games except for this one. I haven't played Outer Rim, I haven't played Rebellion, but what I have played and used to own was the Risk Star Wars edition. I actually owned the Black Series, and what I would specifically say is that if you want to check this out, you need to check out the Black Series version. Yes, it's Risk, so yeah, you're still rolling dice, and the mechanics aren't the best in the world, but when it comes to production, Hasbro did a killer job on creating a really beautiful looking game. You've got miniatures for the Millennium Falcon, the Death Star, and the Executor Star Destroyer. You've got raised ink on the cards and on the board itself. Even the dice are translucent rather than opaque. It's a fantastic looking game. It looks absolutely beautiful when you get it on the table. Why I don't have it anymore is really simple. It's because I play a lot of games solo, and this is not a soloable game. And so I sold it to somebody who I thought would appreciate it, and probably get it to the table more often than I could. So that's one of my honorable mentions, is the Risk Star Wars edition, specifically the Black Series version. The second honorable mention, technically it's based on an intellectual property, but it can't be licensed anymore because it's in the public domain. And I'm talking about Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula is one of those games where I really like the asymmetric play. There are other games on this list that might feature a little bit of asymmetric play, we'll find out about that later. But I really like the fact that it's hidden movement, that one player is playing against everybody else. Everybody else is trying to confer together and work together to try and find Dracula. You can even play this with two people, where one person plays Dracula and the other person plays all four characters. You can do it that way if you want to. It's one of those games where you know you're going to be strapped in for about 2 to 3 hours. When you spend that long at the table with somebody playing a game, there's an experience that comes with it. I've also liked the IP of Dracula for a long time. I haven't digested every Dracula novel that there is, or watched every vampire-related book. Watched a vampire-related book, watched a vampire-related movie, and one of my favorite current series is What We Do in the Shadows, and not because it's vampires, but because it's stinking hilarious. I would love to see a game of Fury of Dracula with a What We Do in the Shadows skin over it. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. Somebody get on that. WizKids, whoever, somebody get on that. But because Dracula is no longer because Dracula is now in public domain, it can't technically be licensed. You can still use the IP, you have free reign to it, and that's cool. But because of that reason, and because I used semantics when putting this thing together, semantics, I decided it couldn't be on the list for that particular reason. So that's my honorable mention. Now, let's jump into the actual top 10, shall we?
Number 10.
At number 10 is a game I've played one time. Didn't even get through an entire full game of this game, but I really liked the vibe that it produced when it hit the table, and that's Firefly the Game. There's a lot of people out there that don't like Firefly, that didn't like the series, they didn't like the movie, they're not going to like the game. And frankly, you kind of have to be a fan of the IP in order to like this game, because it's a pick up and deliver game. The mechanics are a little clunky. There's a lot of expansions. It takes a while to play. We didn't get through an entire full game the first time I played it, but we all sat around sharing quotes and quips from the series, and I did my best Nishka impersonation.
No, you are solid.
It's fun. It's fun. If you like that IP, you're gonna like the game. No matter how long the game takes, no matter how mechanically it drags or slogs you down, you're gonna like the game. I don't think the game is terrible. I really don't. I think it works for what it is. It could be shorter, but when you combine that with the IP and you make it work together, I think it's a good game, and I would love to play it again. Firefly, the game, my number 10.
Number 9.
At number 9 is a version of the Flux card game. Now, I've played several versions of Flux. I've played the regular version, like straight up Flux. I've played Batman Flux. I've played Star Flux, and those are all cool. But because Flux is the type of game it is, where rules can change every single hand, sometimes twice in the same turn, and you have to do silly things or stupid things, I think the one intellectual property that works best for the Flux line is Monty Python Flux. Again, you really need to be a fan of the intellectual property of Monty Python to enjoy this particular game. Some of the cards actually have rules where you have to quote lines from a movie or from one of the episodes. Some of them even say that you need to sing part of a song, part of one of the Monty Python songs. And the cool part about this is that it's not just based on Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yes, there's a lot of information in there from that film because the film had a lot of really great, memorable things. But it also takes cues from the television series and from The Life of Brian and from The Meaning of Life. It's a fantastically well put together game with this particular IP. And if you're a fan of Monty Python, I highly, highly recommend checking it out. Monty Python Flux, my number 9.
Number 8.
At number 8, I'm probably going to raise some eyebrows with this particular one because I hear a lot of hate getting thrown around the game community about Munchkin. There's one that I played that I think really, really works well. It does a great job of combining the theme with the mechanics and makes it feel like it makes sense, and that's Munchkin Marvel. All due respect to Sentinels of the Multiverse, but if I had a choice between Sentinels of the Mercyverse,
Please have mercy here in this mercyverse.
if I had to choose between Sentinels of the Multiverse and Munchkin Marvel, if we only had a short window of time, if we only had a half hour, I'd say Munchkin Marvel. If we had more than an hour, I'd say Sentinels of the Multiverse. Marvel Munchkin has less upkeep. It has less bookkeeping, fewer things to keep track of, I think. And to me, that's kind of a win. Plus, the mechanics of the game, in regular Munchkin, you've got all the humor that goes along with playing the game. You've got all the fun, the different cards that come out, they make you laugh. Well, by the time you've played that game 3 or 4 times, you've seen most of the cards and they're not going to make you laugh nearly as often. It's like hearing the same joke more than 2 or 3 times. But in the Marvel skin of this game, there's no humor. It makes sense. You are a superhero character and you are playing with other superhero characters and you're recruiting and you're fighting enemies and it makes sense. So when you get to that point where there's one player that has 9 points and they're getting ready to go up to level 10, it makes sense that other players would try to attack and bring that player down. And honestly, it feels a lot more organic doing it in that particular skin of the game than it does in regular Munchkin. As odd as a choice this might be, this is my number 8, Marvel Munchkin.
Number 7.
At number 7 is a game that I don't think many people are aware of. It might not be on a whole lot of people's radar. If you're not a fan of computer-based video games, you might not care too much about this, but I picked up a copy of Superhot, the card game, at Geekway to the West, and this is my number 7. This is a surprising game. It's a deck-building game that features a puzzle aspect to it. In the video game Superhot, you are basically a spy or a hitman. I don't know. You have a gun and you're shooting people and other people have guns and they're trying to shoot you. But time doesn't move unless you move. So you can take as much time as you want. It's a bit of a challenge and I've played through the demo of the game, but I haven't played the full game. Superhot, the card game, takes the premise of time only moving when you move and it puts it into a deck building game. So you've got a row of things that are coming at you. They could be enemies, they could be bullets, they could be all sorts of things. A really cool exercise in not knowing just what to play, but when to play it and how. Because some of the enemies you defeat, they go into your hand for the next turn. Some of them, you could choose to put them into your discard pile. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can lose the game, so it's kind of a balance. You have to work out a balancing act. It's a cool challenge, but it's one that you can win. And to me, it's a good challenge. It's fun to figure that type of stuff out. And I like puzzles that are beatable. This is a game that you can play both with just as a solo game, or you can play it with 2 players. When you do play the game, if you do get a hold of it and you play it, you definitely need to pore over the rules very, very carefully, because this is not your typical deck building game. But man, once you dive into it, it's really cool. And even though I know Superhot is not a well-known IP outside of the gaming industry, I think this game does a great job of implementing that and putting that into the card game. So that's my number 7, Superhot, the card game.
Number 6.
It's pretty cool that I know a guy who's a game designer who has a published game attached to an existing IP. I was kind of excited when I played this game. He played a prototype with me before it got published and before it was announced how it was going to be published as. And then later on that year, I found out that it was being put out by Catalyst Game Labs. I found out it was going to be set in the Shadowrun universe. Shadowrun Zero is a fantastic, tight little 2-player game. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't remember the terminology. I'm not completely familiar with Shadowrun. I would love to play the role-playing game because I hear some really cool stuff about it, and I love the cyberpunk aesthetic. I love that vibe. I love cyberpunk, and I love everything that goes along with it. It's just cool. The aesthetic is synth and neon. Zero Day, I think, takes that aesthetic and really makes it shine. I don't think necessarily that you need the IP to go along with the game, because the game played well before it was ever associated with Shadowrun, and I really enjoy the play of the game. It's tight. It's one of those games where the players kind of control when the game ends. There's no definitive, you play 3 rounds, you play 2 rounds, anything like that. But basically, you're hackers, you're trying to get into a mega corporation, and you're earning points doing all sorts of different things. There's a lot of Shadowrun terminology in the game that I don't think makes a ton of sense, because these are terms that most people would not know unless they knew the world of Shadowrun. However, the gameplay is still fantastic, and for a 2-player game, I would recommend it highly. Number 6 on my list, Shadowrun Zero Day.
Number 5.
At number 5, there's a common misconception that this next game is based on the video game Dig Dug. It is based on a video game, but it's not based on that game because it's not the same game. Yes, you do dig, but you don't destroy enemies. That's not the point of the game. In this game, you're digging to find precious metals and gems, and to use those precious metals and gems to build onto your drilling machine. This is Super Motherlode. Super Motherlode was based on the video game that was created by XGen Studios, and you can actually play it online. There's a web-based version of the game. It's a deck builder that allows you to dig, blast, and pierce your way through a really long section of a planet where you're trying to find gems and stones and artifacts, and you're using those to purchase new cards and to earn victory points. There's a great mechanic in the game that allows you to earn minor achievements and major achievements, and those are worth victory points as well. It's a fun deck builder. It's one of the more unique deck building games I think I've had a chance to play, in that, yes, you're using something to accomplish something else. The goal isn't to cooperate against an enemy or to destroy your opponents. It's basically just to earn more points than your opponents, and you're doing it through digging down below the surface of a planet. It's very cool. I love the aesthetic. Roxley Game Laboratories did a fantastic job publishing this game. The art and the visual representation, the graphic design in this is just stellar. I got this one as a gift, actually, and it's one of the better gifts that I think I've received from somebody. So I think it was a Secret Santa gift or something. I don't remember. And again, it's based on an IP that not too many people know, but because it is a licensed game, it's on this list, and it's my number 5.
Number 4.
When I first started ranking this list, this next game was actually at number 1. And then I thought about it, I'm like, no, number 2. And I thought about it, I'm like, no, it really needs to be at number 3. Nope. No, this one's at number 4. And the reason this one is at number 4 is because it's a 2-player game. I've played a solo variant of it. It's fine for what it is, but I think it shines better when you're playing person versus person. You don't have to worry about working a bot or anything like that. And there are so many different IPs that you can play with this game. I'm talking about Dice Masters, a grand slam of a dice pool building game. It's a re-implementation of the game Quarriors, and it's a 2-player skirmish game. You've got the Marvel. You've got several different types of Marvel skins for this game. You've got DC, Dungeons and Dragons, WWE, Warhammer. There's all sorts of different ways that you can play this game. The game plays the same. From what I understand, it plays the same with just a little bit a tweak here and there based on the IP that you're playing with. I've got the Marvel version. In fact, I've got Age of Ultron, that particular version of the game, and I've played it with my nephew. I've played it with my other nephew. I've played it with a friend of mine. It's kind of like a deck builder, but you're building a pool of dice, and you're attacking, and you're building, and you're defending. And I don't like 2-player skirmish games. I don't think I would like Magic the Gathering at all. I was okay with Temporal Odyssey because it was a little bit different, and it played quickly. And my wife is printing something right now. Let's see what happens. What's going to happen? What's happening here? I guess the printer just decided it needed to align the cartridges for no particular reason right now. Thank you very much for that. One of the cool things about Dice Masters is that each version of the game is so mechanically similar that you can mix and match. You can cross and combine the different types of IPs together, and I think that's really cool. I picked up a starter set for $5 at Walgreens when they were clearing them out, and I'm glad I did because it's been a great source of enjoyment for me, and I've bought some of the promo packs, several of the promo packs over the years, and for the price that you paid for it, you get a lot of enjoyment out of it. I really enjoyed this game. Dice Masters. You cannot go wrong with rolling customized dice. Dice. You cannot go wrong with rolling customized dice. You just can't. It's my number 4, Dice Masters.
Number 3.
This next game, I'd never actually heard of the IP that it was based on until I bought the game. This is based on a series of books by Patrick Rothfuss called The Kingkiller Chronicles. This is Call to Adventure. I picked up a copy of this for about $20. They had it on a special over at Miniature Market in St. Louis. I'd heard really good things about it, and I decided to go ahead and check this out. And holy cow, what a cool game. It's very light mechanically. There's not a ton going on, but you don't necessarily need a ton going on. It feels like one of those games that's kind of like multiplayer solitaire. You're trying to build your own tableau in front of you. You're not really interacting with the other players at the table. There is a variant in the game that allows you to be able to play the game against a common enemy and playing cooperatively like that, and I'd really like to try that sometime. But by itself, the game is fantastic. The artwork and the graphic design in this game is stellar. It's off the charts beautiful. If you just take a look. Look at it. Look at it. Just take a look at this artwork. It's phenomenal. As you're building a character, you've got an option to follow a light path or follow a dark path. And there's a cool built-in mechanic that allows you to roll a dark rune. And a dark rune is going to give you at least 1 success, probably 2 successes. But if it gives you 2 successes, it also takes you further down a dark path. And you have advantages and disadvantages to following a lighter path or following a darker path. Man, I really enjoy it quite a bit. I play this one solo a lot. The idea of building these different aspects into the character that you're trying to work with I think it's a lot of fun. And rolling the runes is cool. It's unique. It's different than rolling dice, and they have a really cool feel to them. It's definitely one of my favorite games that's come out in the last couple years, and I appreciate the fact that Brotherwise is a company that made Boss Monster, and now they've made Call to Adventure, and I'm sold on this one. So that's my number 3 on this list, Call to Adventure.
Number 2.
My number 2, I really like deck builders. Apparently. There's another deck building game that's on this particular list. I enjoy it quite a bit. It is Legendary, but it is not Legendary Marvel. It is the Legendary Encounters Alien version. This is a game that allows you to play through the different scenarios of the 4 first movies in the Alien trilogy. I'm not counting the Alien vs. Predator movies. I'm not counting those. There's a lot to like in this game. It differs from Marvel Legendary in a way that allows you to be able to coordinate. You can coordinate what you're doing with the other players. And whenever I play this game solo, I play as 2 players instead of just 1, because the coordinate is one of those functions that really allows you to do a little bit more than you could if you were just playing your cards by themselves. I enjoy this game. I enjoy the heck out of this game. It evokes a sense of tension and a sense of terror, believe it or not, that I was really surprised at how much that comes through when you play this particular game. It's a perfect meld, especially since you are playing a cooperative game, but it does give you an option to play as an alien player. I think it does a great job of putting the world of Alien inside a game like this and making it work. I'm very, very impressed with this game. I love playing it with other people. The game is beatable, but it's very hard. I'm sorry, I can't say too much more about it without going, Alien! Aliens was one of my all-time favorite action movies. It was one of the best movies of the 80s. Sigourney Weaver was fantastic in it, and it wasn't until I was in college that I saw the first movie, Alien, for the very first time and realized, wow, this is a whole different movie, completely different feel, but I loved it. I ate it up. This has got to be one of my favorite IP-based games, one of my favorite licensed games ever, and that's Legendary Encounters, Alien, my number 2.
Number 1.
I almost put this game at number 2 because I can't play it solo. Technically, I could. There is an official, unofficial variant that's out there that allows you to play a 1-player game or a 2-player game. This game works best between 3 to 5 players. It really helps if you're a fan of the IP, although I don't think you have to be in order to enjoy this game. I've heard this game get praised by people who love board games, by people who love role-playing games, and by people who don't normally play any other sorts of games. It takes a while to play, and while Dark Moon could have replaced this for a lot of people, I think you just simply cannot beat Battlestar Galactica, the board game. My gosh, what a fan... Are you a Cylon? You start the game and there's a good possibility that one of the people at the table might be a Cylon. One of the human players might actually be a Cylon player. And then halfway through the game, more role cards are sent out, and it's possible that there could be another Cylon that gets activated later on in the game. I think it's a great way to really add to the tension. If you are a Cylon, and I've played this game several times where I have been a Cylon, you really got to temper your time and figure out when's the best place for me to reveal the fact that I'm a Cylon, or should I keep this a secret as long as I possibly can? And part of the fun for me in playing this game is watching the accusations fly and throwing insults at people, like talking trash. Like, I see your lips moving, but all I hear is, man, the first time I played this, I was blown away by how much fun it was. And every single time I've played it since then, it's been a cool experience. I did have one experience one time where it didn't go that well, and that was because we had a player who was quarterbacking the entire time. My favorite part of that game was actually accusing him of being a Cylon. It's like, you're telling everybody what to do, you're a Cylon. He's like, no, I'm not a Cylon. The look on his face was fantastic. It was not a great game, but I still love this game. I still love Battlestar Galactica. I will play it really pretty much any chance I get. And yes, I know it takes 2 to 3 hours to play, but to me, that's part of the fun. Again, the investment of time at the table, just like with Fury of Dracula, just like with Dead of Winter or something like that. The investment of time at the table creates an experience that I don't think you can get doing many other activities. A whole lot of other board games out there, if they play in an hour or less, it's fun. It's an activity. It doesn't burn in your memory the way a game like Battlestar Galactica does. And this particular game is so good. I am really, really sad that it's not in print any longer. If you happen to live in the St. Louis area and you don't know anybody that owns a copy of the game and you want to get together and play a game with me, let me know. Leave a comment and I'll be glad to, I don't know, we'll figure something out, I guess. What a great game. What a great game. And if you're a fan of the show, like I am, it helps that much more just to really dive into this game and have a good time. My number 1 on this list, Battlestar Galactica. Hands down. So, what do you think of the choices on this list? What are your favorite licensed games? What are the favorite games that you have that have an IP attached to them? What do you like about them? What do you hate about what you heard on this particular list? What don't you like about Marvel Munchkin? I'd really want to know. Feel free to describe to this channel. Tell me about this channel. Tell me about this channel. Feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more videos like this. And if you get a moment, hop onto my Patreon. It's patreon.com/backburnergames. I create role-playing game content, games, systems, and scenarios. For as little as $3 a month, you can get unique, brand new RPG content sent to your inbox. And if you sign up by July 31st, 2020, you'll get my brand new scenario, which is called Love is Sentient. It's about artificial intelligence and robots that fall in love with other robots or with humans. Remember, $3 is all you need, $3 a month to sign up for that. Go to patreon.com/backburnergames to sign up. This is Zach W. Lorton with Backburner Games saying thank you guys for watching the Backburner podcast. I really appreciate it. Do me a favor and spread this around to your friends and family. Anybody that you think might like this video, throw it out there. Do me a favor, will you? I appreciate it. Please. please? I need food. I'm so hungry. Help me. I am only 989 subscribers shy of being able to monetize. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day. Have great games. And I'll see you next time.
This podcast copyright Backburner Productions 2020. All rights reserved, Callahan. Oh yeah? What about the rights of that little girl? All games, titles, images, video, and music featured in this podcast are the property of the copyright owners and not the creator of this podcast. Get original tabletop RPG content every month by supporting Backburner Games on Patreon at patreon.com/backburnergames.
Want it, lovers, you 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 want it now.